The United States is engaged in a lot of international action these days. Iran, England, Ukraine, and of course Venezuela. President of Venezuela, still in American custody, is Nicolas Maduro, who's facing major drug charges. Congress continues to debate the action taken by the Trump administration, flying a mission to capture Maduro. Congress is also debating allegations of widespread fraud in the child care sector. Now, Joe Parris spoke with Idaho Senator Mike Crapo for his perspective on the high-profile debates.
Debate continues in Congress over the Trump administration's operation in Venezuela to capture President Nicolas Maduro. Critics question if it was a legal use of the U.S. military.
Well, the first thing they need to know is that Maduro is an indicted criminal. A grand jury of the United States in 2020 indicted him for drug trafficking and cartel activity.
Idaho Senator Mike Crapo voted against a recent resolution blocking the use of the U.S. Armed Forces to engage in hostilities within or against Venezuela unless authorized by Congress, an effort that has stalled out. He supports efforts from the Trump administration on the topic dating back to 2020.
Frankly, President Trump was president then, and the Democrats attacked President Trump for not going and getting him then. Now, President Trump has, at the request of the Department of Justice, allowed the Department of War to help support the Department of Justice in effecting an arrest.
Senator Crapo believes there is a clear difference between war powers and what transpired with Maduro.
This was an action of our legal system rather than our military system, but it was supported by our military system. And we were in there no more than 2 hours. This is not a war. There is not an American soldier on the ground there anymore. They went in, they got the job done, they arrested Maduro and his wife, and they got out.
Crapo adds there is historical precedent for this type of action.
Now this argument that the president can't take that kind of action is kind of moot. But the other thing I would like Idahoans to realize is that many different presidents have used our military for actions in different countries without declaring war. And that is something that is very well accepted. In fact, a very similar thing happened with Manuel Noriega in Panama some years back, where they were not only on the ground for just 2 hours, they were on the ground for about 2 weeks. But they arrested him. He was indicted for drug charges. He was returned to the United States. He was tried. He was put in jail, and he's in jail today. That's what we hope is going to happen with Maduro.
Back on U.S. soil, Republicans are leading what they describe as a war on fraud, sparked by concerns in the child care sector with dollars out of Minneapolis, Minnesota.
If you step back and look at it, the federal government is literally throwing trillions of dollars into support payments across multiple different types of programs. And the fraud is rampant. And one of the things that we are seriously considering right now is either a big mega package on fraud resolutions or going into another reconciliation package if we can't get bipartisan support to address this fraud, and dealing with it in the way that we did in a large way during the first reconciliation package.
And the senator tells me he believes there's a second act, so to speak, to the one big, beautiful bill, that first reconciliation package. He says that he wants to remind Americans that that first package included acts that he says reduced $1.6 trillion of fraud and wasteful spending, adding that there's much more than that for us to find out there. So, Hunter, we know that with both big topics, especially of Venezuela, that'll now play out in an American court. News today, though, that Senator Tim Kaine is still trying to monitor the president's war powers, so to speak. His argument is that the United States military should not have been involved with the legal department the way it was.
Yeah, there's a lot to watch out for right now on Capitol Hill, to say the least.
Oh, yes. Of course, we're still following the latest with Greenland and Iran and the Ukraine. So there is plenty of new things to follow here in 2026.
Yeah, if you haven't looked it up, look up the hats. That's a new thing, too.
A lot of hats.
Yeah.
That's true.
All right, Joe, thank you.